do anything. So it's just very strange. Let's see. I'm going to try one thing real quick here. Is there a picture now? Let's see. I now have a picture, but it's like a teeny tiny picture of me. Okay. Yeah. Is it teeny tiny for you? Why am I so teeny tiny? Like I'm trapped. It's a little tiny me. It's weird. Okay. But I don't even know how this many different things can go wrong, like can consistently go wrong. I feel like software companies should pay me to try to break their technology. Is there a job for that? Because I think I'd be really, really good at it. Like really, really good at it. So I don't know. But here we are. Okay, so there's a little tiny picture of me, and now we're about 5 minutes into it. And yes, now I'm at least out of the dark, and I'm in this picture here. So let me just kind of rearrange. So how the heck are you guys? How is everybody? How has your week been? Looks like Alicia is having some stuff going on. I do have another mug. It does look huge, even huger in the little tiny size frame here. Oh, ouch. She says, my ex got engaged. Oh, I'm so sorry. I know how painful that must be. I can imagine. You know, sometimes things like that, it's just that in a weird way, it's almost like it's exactly what needed to happen because it forces us to just shut that door completely. It doesn't make it any easier, but I think that's kind of the gift in that. So got lots of people on tonight. Thank you so much for sticking with me while I was trying to troubleshoot technology tonight. Let's see. Postmodern Cyberpunk is here. I saw Randy, Camp and Fool, Lisa, Adriana, M. Carter, Dwight. Stacy, David. So Dwight says maybe having local problems. I think they're talking about the feed. No, it's me. Like it's just by local my house. Yeah, yes, it's me. So let's see. Postmodern says started reading Psychopath Free on Saturday, and oh boy. Yeah, really great book. It's probably, for sure, top 5 favorite books on this topic. So yeah. Postmodern says, I have a question for tonight's chat when we have a chance. Go for it. Okay, you're cooking dinner while chatting. Okay, well, we'll see if anybody else has some stuff going on. West Coast recommends the book Healing the Child Within. Making a note of that. Healing the Child Within. The book for this month's, for September's book club that I've got going on. Now I can't even talk. That I have going on is Divorce Poison. For those of you that are interested in reading that. So it's been a really great book so far. It talks a lot about parental alienation and what it is and how to, if you see it happening, how to take action towards preventing it, how to take action towards reversing it. And lots and lots of really great points in there. So I'll have my notes up on that book. My goal is to have my book club book notes up by the 1st of every month. Right now I'm getting them up around the 10th of every month. And this past month has been, again, like technology meltdown. Of course, it never ends. So, but my support group forum did get upgraded. My website has been crashing on and off, and we tried moving it to another host, and then that didn't work. And it's just, again, like been one thing after another. So, so kind of long. The point of me saying that was that my notes for the August's book are not up yet, and I'm about 14 days late getting those up. I normally have them up by the 10th of the month. If you want to read my notes, we did read Psychopath Free as a book club book, and you can read my book club notes on that if you go to my website, thriveafterabuse.com, and then go to book club, and you'll see links to all of the different books and all of the different notes that I have from those books. So yeah, for those of you that are just coming on, I am having, technology errors, so nothing new. And we don't even know why. I'm there's like a little tiny picture of me in the corner, and so we're just gonna stumble through tonight, and then I'm gonna try to get this fixed by next week. So that's huge. BBR says, Dana, I went on a date with a normal guy. It was okay. It was just dinner. There were no sparks, but after 8 months, it was nice to finally cross that bridge. That is huge. Huge on a couple different levels. Okay, so let's just take a second here and kind of celebrate your victory because it's a big victory. It's you getting to the place where you're open enough to actually put yourself out there again, to be open enough to trust somebody and to have a date and to realize, I guess, and to attract and be attracted to a quote unquote normal guy. So there are lots of like mini victories kind of wrapped up inside of that larger victory. And I'm really excited for that, for you and for that, because that's a great, huge step in the direction of, rebuilding your life and moving forward. So yay you for that. That's awesome. What? Bear says he's touring Iceland and bonding with his daughter. That's awesome. I'm jealous. How very cool for both of you. I hear there's amazing hot springs in Iceland. D-Mel asks, where can I find the information on parental alienation? There's the book that we're reading right now in the book club, and I haven't put my notes up on it. So I really am going to work hard to have those up here within the next, probably 10 days. The book is called Divorce Poison, and it's really good. It talks a lot. You can find the book, I'm sure, at your local library. You can find it on Amazon. You can find links to that book and many others that we've been reading in the book club on my website, which is thriveafterabuse.com. And then go to the tab that says book club. So, yeah, really, really great information. Richter says, tried to move on and find somebody new, but found another narc. It's crazy how many narcissists there are out there. Yes. And I think most people tend to find, especially if they're dating people out of a place of loneliness, or if they're dating, you know, if they haven't addressed or even become aware of the vulnerabilities that the last narcissist exploited within them, then it's really easy to crash into another narcissist, but the exact opposite type. So I found that as well. I had two covert narcissists pretty much back to back in a 5-year span of time. And then I would go from avoiding kind of the Prince Charming guys, and I was dating guys that were more doing the opposite. Like, they were kind of jerky. And I guess in my mind, the thought process was, well, at least I kind of know what I'm getting, versus a guy that's incredibly charming, but that turns out to be incredibly destructive. So that was my way, as of course, subconsciously, like that was my way of trying to stay safe and to try to pick people that weren't going to hurt me. But I found myself just continually finding problematic person after problematic person. And I didn't realize, like, why, how and why is this happening? And, when you encounter enough narcissists and sociopaths almost back to back, it can be incredibly unnerving and really discouraging to kind of think, is everybody out there like this? Like, where did all of the normal people go? And what on earth is going on? Like, why are there so many of them? And kind of what am I missing? So, but I can just kind of speak from my experience. The part that I was missing was I had these unaddressed vulnerabilities, which I call empty buckets. I had been walking around feeling very unloved and very unimportant for a very long time. And there was a wide variety of reasons for that, but not only in my childhood, but in my adult life as well. I married a guy that was in the military. We'd been moving around every 18 to 24 months. And so it got to the point where I really didn't know anybody. I was moving from city to city. And once we got a divorce, it was sort of like I looked around and I had no friends. I had no support system. It was just me. And I didn't have a place that felt like home anymore. And I was incredibly lonely, but that had been my way of life for, a handful of years. So it didn't register as something wrong or different or that needed to be addressed. It was my new normal. And so I was really prone and susceptible to all of the love bombing with these different, emotional manipulators. That was my weak point. It took me a while to realize that was what was going on. Once I was able to start addressing that, those people stopped coming into my life. But it took a while for me, to kind of make those connections. So that's the best way to do it. If you can get to that place where you have a decent support system in place, you've got friends, you've got hobbies, you're feeling safe and secure and stable in your own life. And then that way, when you're dating people, it's coming from a place of, I really want them in my life. I don't need them in my life. They're the icing on the cake. They're not the whole cake. And when you're coming from that mindset, it's more of that mindset of abundance than a mindset of scarcity. Because that mindset of scarcity, if we're dating out of if we're dating out of need, then we're going to be more prone to clinging on to something like a life raft and holding on to dear life, versus if we're coming from a place of want, if we're coming from a place of abundance, where we're like, what, there's lots of different people out there. I'm going to focus on being choosy, which is the abundance mindset, and not focus so much on being chosen, which is the scarcity mindset. So when you have that abundance mindset, you're okay with going on a date and realizing, this person's not for me. It doesn't make them necessarily bad or wrong, or maybe it does make them bad or wrong, but you're coming from a place of, I'm okay with letting the ones that are not for me go, instead of trying to cling on to it and make it work. And of course, a lot of this is subconscious because, it's how our brain, it's just survival mechanisms that our brain has to keep us safe and to make sure that we're getting our needs met. Hey, awake Kate is here. And so you guys probably don't know, but I just wanted to address this real quick before we moved on. So Randy, I hope this is okay that I'm saying this. Randy had a little mini meetup the other day, and it was so much fun. It was Randy. She invited me, and awake Kate was also there, and Serena Nightshade was going. I think showed up the day after I got there because she was having some travel issues, and Mark from Family Tree Counseling, and Lisa, another gal, was there, and it was super fantastic. And then I felt so bad, so I ended up leaving in really really late at night, and I just wanted to say I had a fantastic time. Thank you so much for inviting me. Kate, Kate is just such a good sport, and she is so reserved, and Randy and Mark and I are all talkers, and I think we just talk. And I just want to say, Kate, I'm really sorry. I wish we would have gotten a chance to talk a lot more than we did. So, yes. So sorry. Thank you for being such a good sport and for putting up with my with all of my talking. I get really excited when I'm around other people that are interested in this topic, and especially other YouTubers, because there's not a lot of us out there. And my world, my friends and family, nobody really understands what I do, and even those that do don't really want to talk about it. So I kind of feel like a shut-in, like a lot of ways. So when I get around people that understand what I'm talking about, I'm a big blabber mouth. So again, thank you for putting it. She says, "That's me. I'm a listener. I soaked it all up." Yes, you really did. And gosh, I feel like if you lived close, if you're ever in town again, let's plan on meeting up, and then we'll go out for tea or something, and then I'll just listen to you. I feel like I owe you that, because you just listened so much for so long. But again, thank you, Randy, for a fantastic time. I just really enjoyed meeting all of you guys. So, okay, let me scroll up and see. Phyllis is here. Hi, Phyllis. Okay. Let me scroll up. People are talking about different dating sites. BBR says, "I love Mark. He was great. He was really great." And I have to say, I just recently realized I have a lot of anger and bitterness and a huge chip on my shoulder when it comes to therapists. And that's been a real big realization for me. I've had a lot of damage done in my own life, and from a lot of well-intended but really ill-informed therapists. And I really liked him. So, and of course, everybody there was really fantastic. So, but yeah, he was a great guy. He gets it, and really easy to talk to, and just very down to earth and approachable. And it's just really refreshing and healing in a way for me. So people are talking about different dating sites, and oh, I like that. Okay, Sylvia says, "I told a friend about the cake and icing thing, and now she goes around telling herself, work on the effing cake, work on the effing cake." I like that. So, okay, yeah, postmodern, go for it. She's got some questions. I'm glad you got home okay, Kate. And then I didn't hit any bad weather either, but there was a lot of we had a big storm yesterday. So glad you guys got home okay. So, okay, so real quick, people are talking about dating sites. There are a ton out there. And it used to kind of be you could separate them, that you had a different level of quality of people on like the paid sites. But I don't think that that's necessarily the case. And frankly, if anything, I tend to see a lot of the same people on the free sites and on the paid sites. And there's a lot of people that use dating sites that are married, that are, cheating, that are doing all kinds of things. I know, Jack he was on all of them. He was on every single dating site. And what was the most unnerving thing for me was when I first came across his double life and I came across some ads on Craigslist. He was flat out looking for sex. And it was all about, he was looking for sex with men, with women, with couples, with groups. And, of course, I was shocked and I was horrified. But what was even more shocking to me is then when I was going to different sites like Match.com, Plenty of Fish, he had a different profile that was totally tailored for the people that would tend to go to those sites. So his profile for for Plenty of Fish was all about like just getting together with people and hanging out and just kind of seeing where things went. And then Match.com, it was all about looking for something serious, looking for something real, that he's a real kind of down to earth guy. And I was shocked because I just thought, and this kind of speaks to how naive I was at that time. I thought, well, he's not looking for any of those things. Like he's just looking for sex. So why on earth would anybody lie about that? Like why would you create a profile for that? I mean, and of course, hindsight being what it is, it's sort of like, well, he was doing that because he's always got these double lives going on. He likes having somebody, he likes having a long-term relationship. I think he liked being married to his ex. And I think that was kind of where potentially him and I were headed. He likes that for the stability and for, the convenience of it. But then he liked having, sex with strangers and just doing whatever he wanted to do as well. It never dawned on me that somebody would be so deceitful like that. So, when you're meeting people, and it's obviously not just dating sites, but you just have to go slow and realize that, especially on the internet, anybody can pretend to be anything. And it's really easy to say, oh yeah, sure, I am the CEO of a, multi-million dollar international company, or, whatever they're saying, or that they're in the military, or that they're single. And anybody can say anything. The true test of what's really going on is going to be giving it time and seeing, what kind of behaviors are you seeing? Are they doing strange things where they don't text you after 6 o'clock at night, or you don't really hear from them too much on the weekends, or they're telling you, hey, don't text me, but only message me through Facebook because of some strange reason. Like, oh, because my kids see my phone and I don't want you to, message me because my kids might see, like if it's squirrely behavior, it's squirrely. And that's a problem. So kind of seeing what's going on. How are they when they meet up with you? Is it okay for you to call them, during a normal times when people are dating, that they normally call each other? Is it a big deal can you make plans with them for the same day? Do things add up about them? And to just really go slow. So hi, Kristen. Kristen is here and says, I'm sorry I'm late. Am I the only one seeing the camera picture in the upper left-hand corner of the screen? I'm sorry if this was already covered. Yeah, no, Kristen, it's me, and it's technology. This is yet another episode of Dana versus technology. So I don't know what the problem is, but this is how the video is going to be tonight. So good. BBR says, I'm not lonely. I have my buckets overflowing. Awesome. I love that. Randy says, I have never met a man who turned out to be married that I know of. Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's good. I think the real charming ones tend to hide it pretty well, but the truth does surface. Squirrely behavior does tend to come out. Okay, Postmodern says, oh, your question was, can you explain the red flag where a narcissist says we have problems when in reality the narc has problems? Yes, sure. Great question, great point. So what that red flag is about is it's technically called projection, and it's where a person, kind of like a movie projector, projects a movie onto the screen. When a person projects something onto another person, generally it's uncomfortable or repressed thoughts. So it's whatever a person doesn't like about themselves, they tend to project onto somebody else. Narcissists and sociopaths and emotional manipulators in general tend to do this a lot. But it tends to be really obvious when they do it. And if you've ever experienced it, it is the most wild thing you will ever see. It's just really, really strange. So what it kind of looks like is they might be doing something, generally some form of lying, cheating, abusing, stealing, uncomfortable, bad behavior that they're going to then start accusing their target of doing. And of course, they tend to have more than one target. So it could be they have a target at work, they have a target, their significant other, or kind of whoever. But if you're dating let's say you're dating a narcissist, right? Or an emotional manipulator, and they start accusing you of really strange things like cheating. And this is what I went through with Jack. Okay, here's an example from my own life. Out of the blue, he began questioning me and wanting to know if I was cheating on him. And at first I thought he was joking because nothing had changed in my behavior. I had a pretty set routine. I was either at work or I was home, or I was out for a walk, or I was at the gym. I mean, that was my life. And he began accusing me of cheating. And I thought, oh, this is really strange. But I chalked it up to the fact that he had told me that his ex-wife had cheated on him. And so I thought, well, this is just, maybe it's because we're getting more serious and this is why this is coming up. And so, I told him, I said, I don't know what I can do to make you feel better about this, but I'm not cheating. He was getting so paranoid and so convinced that I was cheating that he began going through my dirty laundry. Again, I'm not quite sure what all he was looking for in there, but he was just insistent that I was up to something. And of course, fast forward to me finding out about his double life, he was the one that was cheating. Although he had been cheating on me since day one, it was just kind of, my guess is when he really began accusing me of it was when he began doing it the most. So he was putting all of that on me. So there's a couple more things about projection that I want to touch on. There's another type of projection, and I'm not sure that this is really the most accurate word to describe this, but it's along the same lines. And this to me is probably one of the biggest red flags. I did a red flag on it called if you wonder if you might be in danger. And it's where they start taking these uncomfortable thoughts where they're thinking about actually hurting their target, and then they're kind of, I don't even know what you would call it. Like they're projecting it not onto their target, but they're like disassociating from those thoughts. So they're saying things like, I had a really bad dream that you died last night, or I've had this feeling that you're going to disappear, or, and if you've ever had this happen, you know what I'm talking about. It's very unsettling, and it's kind of this dark, creepy talk that tends to come out of nowhere. That kind of talk generally means that they're thinking about these things and that they're blaming it on them having a dream or some sort of intuitive feeling or something else. And it's not. It's that they're thinking about either, hurting or killing or doing something to their target. So somebody starts talking about you disappearing, you getting killed in a house fire, your brakes going out, kind of just unsettling, dark talk like that. I would take that very seriously, and I would take that as a thinly veiled threat, even though the person that's saying this, especially if they're saying it more than once, right? The person that's saying this, it might not even register to them that it's a threat, because that's how kind of disassociation and projection both work. It's very strange stuff. So it's because they can't handle those thoughts and those feelings, and so it's a psychological thing. So then they've got to get rid of them. They blame it on somebody else. Another form of projection, and this is not an official term. It's something that has been kind of circulating in the support groups, but hold on a second. Is what we call, or what I call, reverse projection. And it's what we tend to do. So it's where we take all. So projection is where they take all of their bad or uncomfortable thoughts and they put them on us. Reverse projection is where we take all of our good, our highest and good thoughts and assumptions, and we put them on them. So they're projecting all of their bad qualities onto us. We're projecting all of our good qualities onto them. So you can see how that can lead to a lot of confusion and a lot of, problematic thinking and acting, because we're not we're not seeing the situation clearly. We're seeing them as the kind of the highest and best version of themselves, which is really our highest and best version of ourself, which they are not, because they are not us. So other examples of projection. Here are some other examples of projection. So it's very common for a narcissist or a manipulative person to accuse their target of being abusive, or to be that you're a narcissist, you're abusive, you're being manipulative, for them to accuse their target of these things when they're the ones that are doing that kind of behavior. And what's really weird is it might be while they're doing that behavior. Like they could be being verbally abusive and you could tell them to stop, and they would spin that around and say that you're being verbally abusive or that you're abusing them. It's really strange stuff how a person is so blind to their own behavior that's going on in the moment. It's just really, really strange. So, yep, there you go. Panthera says, my narcissist stepfather always told me I was a whore while he went to the red light district. Yeah, it's that kind of stuff. They'll say that, maybe we need to lose weight when they're even more overweight, or that, whatever, like we're not good with money, but they're the ones that are really bad with money. So it's very strange. Yeah, completely hypocritical and just bizarre behavior. Postmodern says my brother said his girlfriend said I had Stockholm syndrome. So let me stop the chat here. and address that. So Stockholm syndrome, it's a very common thing for people in any type of abusive relationship to have. And the term comes from a situation in Stockholm where some bank robbers robbed a bank, and they held up, they held some of the people that were inside the bank as for hostages. And this went on for several days. And during that time, the bank robbers, they had guns. It was a very scary situation. But during that time, they also showed some kindness. They let them go to the bathroom. They gave them, let them eat. So there was all of this really scary behavior with like intermittent, seemingly kind behavior. And what happened was, at the end of the hostage situation, the hostages were freed. Some of the hostages came to the defense of the bank robbers, and they felt all of this empathy for them, and like, oh no, they're misunderstood, they're really not that bad, it's okay. And I think it was even two of the hostages ended up marrying the bank robbers, which is really wild. So this kind of also goes hand in hand with trauma bonds. So it's an interesting thing. The brain is an interesting thing. So when we experience these intense emotions of intense fear with, intense fear, intense danger, and then you have moments of calm or you have moments of kindness, it's this, within our brain, it's this chemical reaction where a person's getting sent on these intense highs and lows of, oh no, we're in incredible danger. Oh, good, we're safe. Oh no, we're in incredible danger. Oh, good, we're safe. And in an abusive relationship, it's very much the same thing. It's, oh no, we're going to break up. And they drop you to like the lowest of lows, right? And then they hoover around, and it's all of the love bombing, and then you're brought up to like the highest of highs again, and then the devalue stage starts again, and then it goes, you go straight to the discard stage, and then it goes to the lowest of lows. And it's this level of intensity, and a lot of people confuse that level of intensity with love, because they think, I've never felt like this before, I feel so bonded to this person. And here's something else. A lot of people will say, if they're in an abusive relationship, we've really gone through a lot together. And the highs are really high, the lows are really low. We've really gone through a lot together. My question to them would be, have you? Have you really gone through a lot with them, or have they dragged you through a lot? Because there's a very big difference there. So in a normal relationship, and of course, when we're in a relationship like this, it causes a lot of confusion. It causes a lot of really muddied thinking. And it can be it's very common, very normal, very understandable for a person to confuse, well, what are the normal highs and lows of a relationship? And how is that different from an abusive relationship? People get stuck there. Well, how do I know if it's normal highs and lows of a relationship, or if it's, if it can be fixed, or if it's abusive and I've got to walk away? And the way that I look at it is, yes, normal relationships have highs and lows, because life has highs and lows. But that's kind of the key word there, is life has highs and lows. So normal relationships might go through a lot of traumatic events, through the death of a loved one, a miscarriage, suicide, job loss, relocating, selling a house, having a baby, making a lot of money, losing a lot of money, intense sickness, illness, disease, those kinds of things that tend to happen with life. With an emotional manipulator, it's not those things. It's bad behavior. And it's a pattern of bad behavior that continues. And it's one-sided bad behavior, to where it's not this, we've gone through so much together. It's they've put me through so much. they've been dragging me through hell, and I've been sticking around thinking that kind of given enough love or therapy or rehab or church or understanding that they could change. But of course, they tend to not change. If anything, they tend to get worse. But again, what can be confusing with that is the more times they get caught for their behavior, the better they tend to get at hiding it. So a partner might really think like, well, I am seeing some improvement, so I'm going to hang in there. And of course, then they find out, a year, 2, 3 years later, oh no, it's the exact same stuff. This time it's only worse, but they've just gotten better at hiding it. So I think it's important to look at your relationship and see, is it that we've truly gone through so much together, like life events, or is this person dragging me through so much? And is their behavior, is it an event or is it a pattern? Because that's, I think, very telling as well. Because, there's normal people and normal relationships sometimes have bad behavior. And of course, that's up, everybody has their own kind of line in the sand for what deal breaker stuff is. So it helps to really get crystal clear on that as well. But to kind of look at it, if you're going around the same mountain with this person over and over again, and it's the same kind of behavior, and that behavior, it points to either extreme emotional maturity, or you're having to teach an adult how to be an adult, or they're having a lot of behavior that just shows a lack of character. It shows a lack of morals and values. Then that's like deep-seated personality stuff. And that stuff's not easily fixed. So this kind of goes back, and it's not easy. It's not easy to leave a relationship if a person, when we've got our lives combined with another human being. So, when you've got children together, you own a house together, you might have a business together, you've got finances combined, it's not so easy to just up and leave. And of course, coupled with, religion and friends and family and outside pressure and expectation and manipulation, where there's this, they're saying that their behavior is everybody else's fault, or that it's our fault, or give them another chance, or, we need to forgive and forget, or, what have you. But that those highs and lows, that bad behavior that they tend to have, they do turn it into this bonding thing where it becomes it creates this unified front of it's me and you against the world, where it's this mindset of, they could have all kinds of bad behavior. They could be cheating and lying and stealing and doing all kinds of stuff. They get caught for it. Their partner explodes. And then they might say something, and the partner might say, you know what, I'm done. Like, I want a divorce. This is way beyond the realm of like acceptable behavior. I'm done. And they might say, you know what, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up on us. And I'm not going to give up on this relationship. So they spin it around to where now it's the partner's fault, because now the partner's walking away from the relationship. But really, that's not what happened. Like, the partner caught them having a lot of bad behavior. They're not walking away from the relationship. They're asserting boundaries. But of course, when you're dealing with an emotional manipulator, they don't like other people to have boundaries because they want what they want, and they have no respect for boundaries. So they just throw out all the stops. But it can be really tricky to see all of the twists and turns of the conversation, of the manipulation, when it's in motion. And next thing we know, a lot of people will find themselves being like, I don't even know how I just got here, but I feel like I'm now on trial for why this relationship is ending, and that this is somehow my problem, and now I'm the bad guy. Or I'm apologizing. So, or like suddenly now I'm getting the silent treatment because I caught them cheating. Like, what? Like, how did we get here? So those are all a bunch of signs of you're dealing with an emotional manipulator, and it's highly problematic. So let me. Okay, so Postmodern says, I get accused of the silent treatment when I'm taking a timeout. So let's talk about that for a second, because that is a great question. So silent treatment. Here's how I look at it. Silent treatment is it's a punishing, what's called grooming behavior, where it's a way of showing another person, if you act like this, then I'm going to withhold communication from you for as long as I feel like it. I'm going to let you twist and turn in the wind until I feel like turning the spigot of communication back on. Silent treatment is incredibly damaging. It's incredibly abusive behavior, and it's crazy making if you've ever experienced it. And a lot of narcissists can do this, emotional manipulators in general can do this for days, weeks, months, even years. And it's basically to teach a person, don't you dare question me, or challenge me in any kind of way, because if you do, then this is what's going to happen. And so then what ends up happening is the target of that behavior is like, you know what, I can't handle this. Like, I'm sorry. The silent treatment to me really shows, it's a great example of the two different mindsets at work. So you have the mindset of competition, right? This is the narcissistic mindset of power over somebody else. So the mindset of competition, it's a me versus you. It's a win-lose mindset. Narcissists and emotional manipulators have that mindset 24/7. That is the core of their self. They're locked into that me versus you. That's just the core of their personality. A normal mindset in a normal or healthy person is the mindset of cooperation, which is solutions oriented. Like, it's this teamwork, right? It's teamwork. Let's work towards a solution. So when a normal person experiences silent treatment, they don't understand it. They get upset. Like, why are we here? Talk to me. Let's work towards a solution. Let's figure this out. But to a narcissist, it's not about being solutions oriented. It's about winning. And it's generally about winning at the expense of hurting somebody else. It's about destroying somebody else. Once you see that there are two very different mindsets of people out there, it makes a lot of things make a lot more sense. Because then when you kind of realize the mindsets of different people that you're dealing with, it's like, oh, okay. Okay, here I am trying to work towards a solution. I'm trying to be team oriented, and they're not budging. Their mindset is all about getting what they want, and they just don't care about reaching a solution that works for both of us. So that's silent treatment. Now, a lot of people that are not emotional manipulators also do silent treatment. It's not a healthy, it's a very passive aggressive form of communication, but a lot of people do it. So, and so what Postmodern was talking about with taking a time out. So here's the difference with taking a time out. Taking a time out says, you know what? I am really upset right now, and I cannot have this conversation. I'm just done. Like, I'm just done. I need to go for a walk. I need to go do something, because I'm going to start saying a bunch of things I'm probably going to regret, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to say a bunch of stuff that I can't unsay. So I'm going to hang up now, or I'm going to go for a walk, or what have you. You know what? I'll give you a call, or I'll give me 24 hours to just cool off. So a normal timeout period is generally for a normal appropriate length of time, generally not more than 24 hours, for a person to cool off. And it lets the other person know, you know what? I am really upset right now. I just need some time. I'll give you a call tomorrow evening. Or let's talk about this tomorrow night when I've cooled down a little bit more. I still love you. I still value your friendship, or what have you. I'm just done for right now. That's the difference between a timeout and silent treatment. Silent treatment has no defined end. It's holding another person emotionally hostage. It's saying, I'm just not going to talk to you, and I'm going to let you turn yourself inside out, trying to figure out if we're going to get a divorce, if we're done, if I'm ever going to talk to you again, what's going on. And, that it turns a person inside out. It's awful. And it's designed to do that. So, but like I said before, other quote unquote normal people do silent treatment too. But a normal person, because a normal person does have that mindset of cooperation, of teamwork, they might have picked up silent treatment kind of stuff from their parents or from somebody else. So if you let them know, you set that boundary, hey, you know what? I don't do silent treatment. Like, I'm not okay with that. So, and talk to them. Like, if you're upset, it's okay for you to be upset. It's okay for you to take time out. But next time this happens, I don't like turning myself inside out, wondering what I did wrong, how I can fix it. If you're ever going to talk to me again, if we're going to get a divorce, like I can't go there. Like, it makes me crazy. So just let me know that, hey, you know what? I'm really upset. I need a time out. I'll talk to you. I'll give you a call tomorrow evening. That's all I need. And then I will respect your space. And you can kind of set that boundary and that framework for how to fight. And that's kind of the whole thing with like how to fight. Everybody has their own communication style. And some people might not be used to fighting fair or fighting, conversing in a way that isn't screaming and yelling. And so this is where boundaries come into play, where you can say to a person, hey, this is what I'm okay with. These are some kind of like rules for fighting, like rules for engagement. There's no name calling. There's no bringing up, each other's family members. There's no bringing up children. There's no, trying to destroy somebody verbally. And then just kind of like laying some ground rules. And then, of course, if it continues to happen, that boundary continues to be violated, then okay, this person, like, at this point in their life, they're not trying to fight fair, and I need to be with somebody who I can communicate with in a healthy way at all times, whether or not we're getting along, or especially when we're fighting, because that really is so telling. Speaking of which, there was somebody on the support group today on my website, and she was talking about her ex-boyfriend who was saying all kinds of hurtful, awful things to her, and it was making her really jealous, and it was just mean. It was like mean and cruel stuff. And here she is, of course, like twisting herself inside and out, trying to figure out, why is he doing this? What did I do to deserve this? This is such hurtful behavior. Why would a person do this? And to me, it's really telling how a person acts when they're angry. Because then you really get to see how they handle things, how they handle stress, how they handle life, how they handle, confrontation. It's really easy to have great communication when everything is going well. It's a lot more telling when things fall apart. So if they fight and they like key your car, they're threatening to stab you. They're calling your work 100 times. They're giving silent treatment, they're blaming you, they're not being solutions oriented. In my book, all of that stuff is deal breaker behavior, because when a person's angry, they tend to really show you who they are. And I don't ever want it, for me, that stuff's not okay. It's never, ever, ever okay. And it's important to find somebody that you get along with on many different levels, and fighting is one of them, because life, you're not always going to see eye to eye with somebody. And so it's really important that you have the same, I guess, like communication style, and then the kind of the same confrontation style, or at least can work to get on the same ground rules as far as confrontation goes. So let's see, let me scroll up here. Hayden says, my husband makes me crazy with his projection. Yeah, it's really, really wild how how, yeah, it's crazy making. So I'm scrolling up here through this chat because I have to stop it when I talk because I can't I can't read and scroll and talk at the same time. Okay, so Sylvie brings up a really great point, and so does David. So David's talking about gaslighting, and Sylvie is talking about being overly sensitive. So, gaslighting, for those of you that are not familiar with the term, gaslighting it comes from a movie. I want to say this film has been remade several times. The film is also called Gaslighting. It was, I think, a 1944 Ingrid Bergman film. And in the film, she marries a murderer slash con artist, and the guy has basically married her in order to get access to her aunt's home that he'd killed her aunt 20 years earlier. And the whole time he wasn't able to get this treasure that he'd killed the aunt for, and so he marries the niece to get access to the house. He's going there, he's trying to get this treasure, and while he is looking for it, because it's like up in the attic or something, every time he turns, and it's gaslighting because the movie's old, when they're turning the gas lighting, he's turning the lighting on, it's causing her lights downstairs to flicker. And during the whole movie, he keeps planting the seeds in her mind that she's crazy, that her reality is not real, that his reality is real. So he's planting things on her. He's moving objects around. He keeps telling her, "Oh, you're under a lot of stress. You're very ill. You're losing your mind. I'm really worried about you. I don't think I can handle this anymore. Why are you so crazy?" And she's not crazy. He's doing all of this stuff intentionally to slowly erode her sanity. So, because she had been catching on to his true identity. So a lot of emotional manipulators will do this gaslighting stuff, and it's because they don't want it. They've been caught for some sort of bad behavior. They don't want to admit to it, and so they're just flat out denying it. So, for example, if somebody gets caught, taking $20 out of your wallet, and again, because emotional manipulators, they lie when the truth would work better for them. They take $20 out of your wallet, and then if you ask them about it, they'll say no, that they never did that. It can be subtle like that, or it can be a lot more obvious, where you might have seen on their phone that they're getting texts from a certain person. It's like strange, like sexy texts from another person, and you ask them about it, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Nobody's texting me. Like, I think you're crazy. You're so paranoid. You're so jealous. What's your problem?" Like, and then they spin it around to where it's now your issue. That's psychological abuse because it erodes a person's sanity. And unless a person's really experienced it, it's hard to even describe the effects of that, because they do tend to be long lasting, and it causes the person to have a lot of trust issues and paranoia and self-doubt and doubting their judgment, and it's awful. And a person doesn't have to experience a lot of gaslighting in order to feel really rattled by that. In my case, what I experienced with Jack, there wasn't necessarily a lot of like overt gaslighting. It was all kind of hindsight. I realized what was going on, but he had been lying about so many things. He had been introducing me to a lot of these people that he had been sleeping with. They were coming over to our house. He was introducing them as coworkers, as people, guests at this vacation property that he was working at. All kinds of things, but it was all like the joke was on me. Everybody knew except me. And when I began piecing things together, it completely just eroded my sanity, and I couldn't figure out what really happened, like what really went on. And for years after that, it was still, even doing these videos and hearing from other people in the comments that they would say, "You know what, Dana, I bet that wasn't true either." Stuff that I hadn't even thought about. And then when you start again, like when something else you realize, oh my gosh, like that wasn't true as well. In a lot of ways, you almost kind of feel like you're back at square one again with trying to figure out what is real. And it really, really messes with a person. And I think a lot of people, and I think there's a lot of like well-intended support groups out there, a lot of well-intended therapists out there, and well-intended friends and family that'll encourage person to move forward. They're like, well, just let it go. You're never going to know the whole truth. You just got to let it go. Yes, I agree with that, but it's not that simple. And I think in large part, why we do that, why there is this constant rehashing of trying to sort out what really happened, where we're caught up in playing out kind of scene by scene, was this true? Was this not true? To me, this is more of like a neurological thing than anything else. It's more of like the brain's way of trying to figure out what caused me pain, because that's the brain's primary function, right? The brain's primary function is to keep us safe. It's to keep us out of harm's way. And our brain is continually on alert for danger. When we're not in danger, our brain, it's still scanning for any potential danger, but it's not at the forefront of our mind, because we know we've experienced enough in our lives that we know what keeps us safe and what puts us in harm's way. So that part of our brain, because it's a more basic part of our brain, it's a reactive part of our brain. It's that lizard brain, the amygdala. That's the part that keeps us safe. When we experience trauma, that part goes into overdrive. So it's continually scanning, especially if it's trauma where there's not a direct cause and effect. So if somebody gets in, let's say, a car accident, it's a very normal, understandable thing that they might be terrified to drive for a while, or they might be scared to get into a car in general after that. After 9/11, a lot of people were really scared about flying. Again, very understandable cause and effect kind of related fear that's going on there. When we're in an abusive relationship of any kind, whether it's verbal, emotional, especially if it's psychological, because that kind of stuff is very, very, very covert. Most people, myself included, don't identify it as abuse oftentimes until years or even decades later, because it doesn't lead to more obvious signs. With physical abuse, you tend to have physical signs that you've been abused. You almost, it's nice in a way because you have proof. It's sort of like, here's a bruise, this really happened. And and that sounds kind of almost sick to say that, but it's validation of what you're experiencing is problematic. With psychological abuse, and I think if you ask any person that's experienced all of those different forms of abuse, the vast majority of them will say they would take the physical abuse any day of the week. It was the emotional, verbal, and psychological abuse that did the most damage, because that stuff sticks with a person for years. So, and this isn't to compare, what kind of abuse is worse. It's all awful, but they all have different kind of ripple effects and different damage that's done. But where was I going with this? Shoot, I just totally lost my train of thought. Oh, so okay. So with psychological and emotional abuse, our brain, it doesn't shut off. And so a person does tend to find themselves very hypervigilant for a very long time after that, because the brain is not linking up what caused them pain. And so what happens is kind of this PTSD type reaction to it. But then people, which is very understandable, our brain tends to link up what it thinks caused us pain. And this is when you get a lot of bizarre associations, but a lot of them, a lot of them are kind of like maybe not that far-fetched, where people are like, oh, I could see that. So this is where you get people that are saying, oh, well, I'm never going to date a redhead again. or I'm never going to date a bartender again, or I'm never going to date an attorney again, or I'm never going to date, you know, a martial arts, mixed martial arts fighter again, or I'm never going to date an actress again. And, what they're linking up is what they think caused them pain, but really it's none of those things. It's not, oh, I'm never going to date, a Catholic again or a Gemini again. It's none of those things that are causing pain. It's the problematic behavior that's the problem. But because a lot of that problematic behavior is so covert, it's so hidden, especially that psychological abuse, like that gaslighting, people don't see it. So they're not linking that up because they're not able to identify it. They're not linking up what caused them pain. So they're kind of, their brain is kind of having to guess and think this is what caused pain. It's also the same line of thinking where people will say, you know what, I'm just not dating anymore. Or I'm just not going to make friends with anybody anymore. And it's not dating that's the problem. It's not friends that are the problem. It's the problematic behavior that's the problem. So the more empowered we all get with, really what it boils down to is paying attention to how you feel. The red flags, they're helpful. They're great. I think for people to kind of sort out what is normal, what is problematic, because this stuff really, it's not taught and it's not discussed. But really the core of all that is getting in touch enough with yourself to pay attention to how you feel. So if you're feeling like something's off, if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling tense or anxious or depressed or suspicious or resentful or angry or any of those uncomfortable emotions, all of those emotions are a sign that something is out of balance. And for you to take some sort of action to get things back into balance. So once we get better at that, then the problematic people, like as a result of that, the problematic people in our lives tend to just go away, because we get so in tune with paying attention to how we feel that, and so good at boundaries and so good at knowing what makes us feel good and in tune with what it means to feel good, that when we start experiencing gaslighting or verbal abuse or any type of snarky little comments or on any scale of problematic behavior, we immediately we distance ourselves enough to where we can evaluate the situation more clearly and then take appropriate action. So I guess that's kind of, my hope was to answer both of those questions with that. So a lot of emotional manipulators, just for Sylvie, just to clear that up, to really drive that point home, a lot of emotional manipulators will spin things around, and they will, because they are very rarely ever, they're never sincerely accountable for their behavior, really. But they might give good lip service to say that they are, but their actions over time tend to point to the fact that they're not. They will blame their behavior on everybody else. So if they say a hurtful comment, if they do a hurtful action and you're not okay with that, you try to draw a boundary and say, that hurt my feelings, or I'm not okay with that. Then all of a sudden we're too emotional, we're too sensitive, we're the ones with the problem. Where again, as a normal person with a normal mindset of cooperation, who is solutions oriented, would acknowledge that and be like, oh wow, I'm really sorry that, I was joking, I took it too far, that was not my intention to hurt your feelings, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. They're not going to keep justifying their bad behavior. So whereas a narcissist or an emotional manipulator will just flat out be like, oh no, it's not my problem, it's not my fault you can't take a joke. There's no accountability there with an emotional manipulator. With a normal person, it's like, oh, I have accountability. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Even if a normal person doesn't see things eye to eye, they will still respect that other person's boundary and realize, for whatever reason, they don't joke like that, or that's not funny to them. And they'll take steps to change, to not hurt that person in the future. And Another point with that, the being overly sensitive and wondering, again, that's another one of the red flags, is they get you to introspect. And what that means is they get you to wonder if you're the problem. So if you find yourself wondering, is it them or is it me? Ask yourself, do you normally wonder about that in other situations? Because most of us don't. So, and odds are you're wondering about something very specific. You're wondering, that's really weird. I feel like this person is really icy, or that they're really pot stirring or triangulating or crazy making. Is it me or is it them? We tend to experience that confusion, which is also like, it's that really should be the first red flag in the red flag series, because confusion is always the sign of problematic behavior. It's always the first sign. It's whether or not we see it, it registers as confusion at the time, because it happens so quickly. It's just that funny feeling that something's off, and we might not even be able to pinpoint it a lot of the time. It's just that feeling like, I don't know, that's weird. When there's that feeling of confusion, to ask yourself, do I feel like this around somebody else? Jackson Mackenzie in the book Psychopath Free does such a fantastic job of explaining this concept and his solution to the concept, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And he calls it getting a constant. And in the book, he talks about his cat being his constant. For me, I needed to have my constant be a person. And in particular, like I have a constant that's female, and then I have a constant that's male. So whenever I'm in a dating situation, I ask myself, what would my brother do? Like, how would he handle that? Because I think my brother's a really good guy. He's got good behavior. He's on the level. If I think about, would my brother do that? Or what would my brother even think of this if I were to tell him about what's going on? If he were to think it was ridiculous, then odds are it's probably ridiculous. Or do I ever wonder this about other men in my life? Like if I encounter strange behavior from a guy, odds are no. It's that specific person. Like I don't normally walk around wondering if, like this, this guy is flirting with other women, or if he's kind of, like doing weird things. So it's a sign. It's a sign that something's off. It's also a sign of denial. Confusion, I think, is the first sign of denial. So it's because when we deny something, we repress it. So, but it starts off as first we have to have the uncomfortable behavior that we want to suppress or repress. And it starts off as confusion. But yeah, having a constant really does help to kind of think, how would they move forward with this? How do I feel when I'm around them? Do you feel nervous and unhinged around your constant? And odds are you don't. You probably just feel that way around this certain person. Do you feel that you're crazy making behavior around other people, or is it just this person? And then that kind of answers your question as to whether or not it's you or if it's them. Because if you don't normally feel that way around other people, then it's not you. Like you're not being overly sensitive. If you have no problem, if you're not getting your feelings hurt right and left by other people, then you're probably not overly sensitive. Or you're surrounded by a bunch of jerks. It's kind of like one or the two. But if you have somebody in your life, if you can just find somebody in your life where you're thinking, this is my constant. When I'm around them, I feel relaxed, I feel safe, I feel secure, I feel listened to, I feel heard, I feel appreciated, I feel loved, I feel safe. Have that person be your constant. And a constant, this can be a person that's living or dead. This person can be somebody, you could even pick somebody that's like fictional or real. somebody that you know in real life or a celebrity. Like it can be whoever you want it to be. It's more based on how you feel when you think about that person. And then let that kind of be your backup guide to moving forward with navigating the seas of behavior. So, yeah, Elise says, I'm reevaluating my friendships. Right now, my therapist is probably my constant. And if you have a good therapist, that would make for a really good constant. And yeah, I think kind of the second wave of all of this is seeing the larger picture, which it sounds like you're doing. And I know you've talked before on other live streams that this is, with the narcissism, this has been a problem in many different areas of your life. So if you've got, this family dynamic, you've got a mother who's narcissistic, and then you've got partners in your life that are narcissistic, and then it's very common because how we tend to do one thing tends to be how we do many things. And, it's these, kind of blurred boundaries, and our vulnerabilities are always with us. And if we're mistaking, a narcissist exploiting our vulnerabilities as us actually getting our needs met, then odds are we've got a lot of narcissists and emotional manipulators in our life. And it can be, and I'm sure you're going through this right now, like really difficult when you start realizing just how far reaching this problem really is. And I think it was Randy. Randy and I were talking, well, and Kate and Mark, we were talking over the weekend about kind of the realization of, the wake-up call of, oh my gosh, I think all of the significant relationships in my life have been with an emotional manipulator of some kind, borderline, narcissist, or sociopath. And that's sad. Like that makes me sad for me, and I think I'm not alone in that. I think there's a lot of people that when they really start looking around, it's like, oh my gosh, wow, yeah, this has been a pattern in my life. And it tends to be that one intense relationship that wakes us up to the bigger problem that's going on. So good for you though, for reevaluating your friendships. That can be really hard to do. Let's see. Kind of going back up here and reading. Osley says, I kind of feel unheard with my friend, but that's her style. She doesn't hurt for her needs, but she is just so about herself. It makes me so sad. Well, and I would encourage you to talk to your friend and tell her, I feel really unheard with you, and kind of this is what I would want more. I want to spend more time with you. I would like for things to be a little bit different, and see if she can make those changes, and if she's willing to make those changes. And if she's not, then that's kind of something you'll have to kind of cross that bridge and figure out if you need to kind of redefine your friendship with her. Kind of what you need to do. Is this somebody that you need to cut out of your life completely? Or is this somebody that you kind of need to downgrade the friendship so that way you're not constantly getting your feelings hurt, and that you're not investing all of this time into something that's more one-sided, to where, you're like, what, I'm okay. Like we can go out for coffee or a drink once a month, and I don't have any expectations, and she's fun to hang out with. And that's that. Instead of thinking like, I really want to have this amazing, intense, emotional connection with this person who's not capable of having that. Because holding on to that hope might be to just continually have your feelings hurt. So I guess to bring up how you're feeling, but then at the same time to accept her behavior kind of for what it is and then to react accordingly. Suckle Goofy Fur says, I have no joy anymore. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Let me get a drink here. I had a really great talk with a good friend of mine last night about this very topic, about joy. And her take on it was joy is it's an inherent emotion within us. We never lose our joy. It's there. It's within us. It's what makes us feel alive. And the way she described it, there's a difference. There's a difference between joy and happiness. Happiness has to do with external events, like somebody bringing, you a cake, somebody bringing donuts to work, or somebody doing something nice for you, or getting a chance to go camping, or be out on, for me, it would be being outside, being out on the lake. Like that is absolute happiness for me. And for a long time, I'd identified that as being joy. Like I experienced so much joy being out on a lake. I just love it so much. And she had said, it's the event, it's the happiness that evokes that emotion within you. But that we always feel joy. And so we can feel joy at any given time that we want to. But the problem is, so many of us, myself included, we look towards external events to make us feel a certain way. So I was kind of waiting to experience joy when I'm waiting, to go spend time on the lake or to go outside or go camping. And she's like, those events come and go. That lake might dry up. You might not be able to go camping. We can't wait to experience joy. We can't rely on other things outside of ourselves to experience those feelings. And, I think, especially when we go through something traumatic like this, where we feel numb across the board, where there's not even happiness, there's not even external events that can bring out joy in us. It can be a really difficult, dark hole to climb out of. So I'm trying to think, when I was in that, what really helped me was to take time every day. This is still something that I do. Take time every day to experience gratitude. I think gratitude is the first step along the path of positive emotion or pleasant emotions. It's really hard to go from feeling despair to feeling joy. Like that's quite the leap to make. So to kind of try to stair step yourself there, the beauty in gratitude is it's appreciation. It's not anything other than that. And there's so much to be appreciative of, health, that back then I was listing off everything that I could even think of. And I would say, for me, it helps to talk to God. That's my time to talk to God. However you define God, creator, source, the universe, what have you, to just say, thank you, God, thank you for kind of fill in the blank. Thank you, God, thank you that I have the health that I do have. Thank you, God, thank you that I have a roof over my head. Thank you, God, thank you that I have some food in the refrigerator, or that I have some money in my wallet, or that I have somebody to call if I'm having a hard time, or that I have clothes to wear, or that I have, that I live in Michigan. I absolutely love living in this state. I'm thankful that, and then you kind of just start listing all of these things. If you have a pet, if you have children, if you have, I'm thankful I have houseplants that really bring me a lot of joy. They clean the air. They put me in a good mood. It's like any little thing that we often take for granted, to start being thankful for all of these little things. It really does work wonders to start to turn around your mood, because a lot of that numb feeling, again, this is very, very normal after a person experiences trauma. They tend to feel stuck. They tend to feel numb. I talked about this in another live stream a while back, but for me, I remember vividly feeling like a moth trapped on the outside of the glass. And everybody else, this is how I felt, like everybody else was on the other side of that glass. And there was a light on, and they were having a good time, and they were living life. And I felt like this moth that just kept tapping against the glass. Like I wanted that. I wanted to be where they were. I wanted happiness and connection and friends and all of that. And I couldn't get there. And that was just the worst, most lonely time in my whole life. That's what trauma does to people. It makes us feel incredibly isolated and alone, and like we're going to be profoundly broken forever. And this pain, it doesn't last forever. It really doesn't. So, gratitude can be a good way to start climbing out of that hole, connecting with people that do get it. And, I think making the decision that you're not going to let this end your life, and that you're not going to let this ruin your life. And then to start working towards the direction of, I'm going to use this towards my highest and greatest good. Even if you don't know what that looks like, even if you don't know what that means, even if you don't even know how to go about doing something like that, just kind of setting that as the course that you're going to head, and start taking steps in that direction. And I'm sorry that you're going through this, but hang in there, okay? Because it's, the joy can come back, and many of your best days are still in front of you. They really are. So, let's see. Somebody asked, Kay asks, how long does the pain last? I've been out for a year and a half. And I was married for 9. The pain lasts different amounts of time for different people. I think what really does accelerate the process is, I think there's a couple things. So like we just talked about, gratitude really does help to move a person forward, because our brain gets stuck in that trauma. It's like the world freezes because we feel separated from everybody. I don't know if Ryan is still on here, but him and I were talking the other night, and he said, and he was and I get it, he was absolutely right in this. He said he felt that the world has now been divided into people that understand and people that don't. And whenever we go through something traumatic, that tends to happen. So trying to kind of get back, like reintegrate this trauma into your life. Like, this is what happened. It's not right. It's not fair. It is incredibly painful. But with all of that said, there's still a lot to be thankful and grateful for. And I'm going to try to take what happened to me, and I'm going to try to make it work for my highest and greatest good. And so what I mean by that, and how that kind of looks. So this is just some examples of what I would do. So when I would find myself in a lot of pain and a lot of anger, I would continually tell myself, Dana, the best revenge is a good life. Like, you've got to take this and make it work for your highest and greatest good, because what is the other option? The other option is just to stay stuck. It's to stay stuck in like the swamps of sadness, and I don't want to be here anymore. So I would take that anger and I would channel it into, I would go clean out my car. I would go clean out a junk drawer. I would go take my recycling. I would go do something positive. And I would I kind of, I guess, envisioned myself as like an emotional alchemist. So I was taking all of this anger and this pain, and I was trying to transmute it by doing something positive and constructive, because I was tired of feeling like being in a lot of pain and being really angry, and going and burning off a lot of that energy in a positive way really helped me to feel like I was reclaiming my power and control over my life, and that I was back in the driver's seat. That yes, that anger, that pain, that's still there. But instead of letting it sink me, I'm going to turn that into rocket fuel, and I'm going to use that to propel me to like my highest and greatest good. And then when I get there, I'm going to take it and I'm going to let it push me to work towards the highest and greatest good of others. I'm going to make this work for me. Damn it. Like, and I just kind of just dug my heels in and you just get stubborn. You get stubborn that you're in the driver's seat. And yeah, you can take this pain and this anger and you're going to make it work for you. And so trying to identify what would that look like to you? What would that look like to try to transmute that pain into something positive? Because when you can start giving your pain a purpose, especially a positive purpose, that's really when healing does start to happen. Because it's discharging that energy, it's releasing that energy, but it's also transmuting it into something positive, and it's putting it to good use. So my brother, here's another example of this. So my brother is a personal trainer, and he, when I had told him everything that had happened again in my life, he had said, he's like, Dana, he says, he'd worked with so many different clients that they'd hit rock bottom, that they'd experienced the ultimate in pain. Either, their partner had left them, they had just gotten some sort of really scary diagnosis, some sort of trauma had happened. It was their wake-up call. And they were like, something's got to give. Like, I just had all of this pain. I'm going to radically change my life. And he's like, what was so great is that anger, they were able to channel that pain and that hurt and that anger and that fear sometimes into getting into the best shape of their life. And that's how they processed that. So, you can make all of this work for you. There's actually a thing out there, a word, a concept called post-traumatic growth. It's PTG for short. And post-traumatic growth is something that generally comes from trauma. It comes from PTSD. So when a person gets that intense amount of trauma where that level of pain, that level of discomfort is so intense, they get to that place where they either sink or they swim. And the post-traumatic growth, because that pain, that emotion, it's so intense, it really can be used as rocket fuel to push a person into doing things that they might not have otherwise ever done. It can push a person into writing that book, or getting into amazing shape, or organizing their whole house, or starting a business, or doing something. It just pushes them because it's that intense. You guys know, it's that intense like vice grip that you feel like that's on your brain that won't let up. And taking massive action in a positive direction is the best way to really put that pain to good use. So there is no time frame, but I really do think it does help tremendously to start giving that pain a purpose and let it drive you. And then that, of course, the added benefit to that is now, you're living not only are you healing, right? You're not feeling awful anymore, but you're living a life of purpose on purpose. And that's when, I mean, you're living your authentic self. And that's what this is all about anyhow. So I would try to embrace that as much as you possibly can. Limitless says, Dana, have you checked Paul Gilmartin's podcast? They're called Mental Pod. No, I have not. Let me. I just lost that. Mental. I think it was Mental Pod. I will check that out. Okay, good. Through the Looking Glass says, Dana, I love that. Sometimes I'll get mad, like, no, how dare this happen to me? I am going to keep moving forward towards everything I love and want in life, even if I have to drag my feet sometimes. Yes. Yep. I was the exact same way. There were many times where I was like, man, it is a good thing that there are not like hidden cameras around here, because people would think I had just lost my mind. I talked to myself out loud a lot during that time, where I just felt so fragmented that I would tell myself, I'm like, Dana, you need to get out of bed and get your body into the shower. Like, let's go. Like I had to have kind of that parent voice out loud that was like, we're going to do this. Get your right leg out of bed, get your left leg out of bed, march your body into the shower. Let's go. Let's go. You need to get out of the house. You need to go to the gym, or you need to go to the store, and let's go. And I needed that at the time because I was sinking. I was sinking fast, and I was isolating, and I didn't trust anybody, and it took all I had to shower or go to the grocery store. It was a scary, scary, dark place. And, different strategies work for different people at different times. So it's just kind of figuring out what works best for you. But I really think, out of everything that I did during that time, the thing that was really the most helpful was just digging my heels in and making that declaration of, I'm not letting this ruin my life. Like, I'm not. And I remember thinking, pretty sure my life's ruined. I'd lost. I had nothing. I had no money. I had declared bankruptcy. I was, foreclosure. I didn't have a job. I was brand new to Michigan. I didn't have any friends. I had gained a bunch of weight. I mean, everything was wrong. Everything was falling apart. But it was just that declaration of, yes, that might all be my reality. But it's not going to stay my reality. Like, I'm not going to let this destroy my life. And just digging deep and finding your fight. And once you start finding that fight and you decide, not letting it ruin my life, and then you start deciding, I'm going to actually make this work for my highest and greatest good because, F you, that's why. Like, to your ex or to whoever, you find even more fight, and you find drive, and you start finding purpose, and you start pulling yourself out of it, and you start just chugging full speed ahead in a positive direction. Yeah, Beverly says, oh my God, I did just that. I talked to myself like a drill sergeant. Just get up and take a shower, or eat or not eat. Yeah. Yep. And then, I think too, it helps to realize right now your mindset is very delicate, and you probably feel like, there's a lot of stuff going on, and that you might be feeling very emotional, very reactive, very uncertain. To make this as easy on yourself as humanly possible. So I also I watched a lot of comedies during this time. I fed my brain. Like, it's the kind of the saying, like garbage in, garbage out. Feed your brain positive stuff, feed your brain nourishing things that empower you and enhance you and bring you happiness and joy and positivity and that put you in a good mood. Now is not the time to watch Lifetime TV movies. Like, now is not the time to watch horror movies. Now is not the time to watch the news. Now is not the time to watch anything that's upsetting to you. Now is the time to watch comedies and to watch videos of kittens and puppies and things that put you in a good mood, things that make you smile, things that warm your heart. Now is the time for gratitude. Now is the time for being around positive people. Now is the time to eat food that is nourishing to you. Now is the time there's tons of guided imagery videos on YouTube to listen to those before you go to bed. All of this kind of stuff is self-care. So like tripling up on your self-care right now and paying attention to how you feel, and realize that how you feel is a top priority right now. It is so critically important that you feel good. And ideally, like once you get used to feeling good, then you're not going to want to feel any other way. So, like get used to feeling good and move in that direction. Namal says, yes, puppies. So let's see. Yeah, lots of positivity. Or you know what? Even if the positivity stuff gets old, stuff that gets you thinking in a different direction. Documentaries can be good for this. There's, just stuff, random things. Personally, I absolutely love documentaries. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson is a super interesting guy. I could listen to that guy speak all day. TED Talks, things like that, things that you get you thinking. Because if you start thinking about something else, you're not going to be thinking about all of this. And it's kind of nice to just give yourself a break from time to time, because I think most of us, I actually it never even crossed my mind to go to YouTube and look up narcissism or codependency or empaths or any of this stuff. But had I thought to do that, I would have been absolutely obsessive about it. I was obsessive about it like freaking several years afterwards, after I felt like I'd healed. So I can only imagine what people are doing when they first, if they're fresh out of something. So giving yourself a break to it's okay. Like, it's okay. It's okay to go have fun. It's okay to go bowling or roller skating or to a movie it's okay to laugh. The pain, the trauma, the heaviness of all of this, it'll be there. Like, you can pick that back up if you want later. But it's okay to take a break from all of this. Yeah, people talking about Amy Schumer. Yeah, Saturday Night Live. Thinking about different things out there that you really enjoy. So, postmoderns talking about, getting a formal assessment of the other person from a therapist. Well, yes and no. Here's my thoughts on this, is that there's it's really hard to get an accurate diagnosis. Most therapists are not going to diagnose a person who's not in front of them. And even if the person is in front of them, the odds of that person being on their best behavior and being incredibly charming and manipulative is really high. So we don't need to have a formal diagnosis of this person is a narcissist, this person is a sociopath, this person is a borderline. This is kind of like the upside and the downside of a label. And a lot of people get stuck here. I understand it. I got stuck there too. But a lot of people think they really want to know for certain because they're dividing the world up into normal people and then cluster Bs, like normal people and then narcissist, sociopath, borderline, histrionic. This is not the case. Okay. It's a whole spectrum of behavior, and that kind of cluster B personality stuff, that's on the more extreme end. But again, you can go to a dozen different clinicians and get a dozen different diagnoses. So it may not give a person the clarity that they want. This is why I encourage people to not seek validation from outside of yourself. This is something that I really have a problem with when it comes to therapy and to diagnoses with personality disorder stuff. Because what I've seen is people will say, well, my therapist or I was told that this person wasn't a narcissist. So, but then they're internalizing that and they're thinking, so then that means that they must be able to get help, that they'll change, right? Because they're not a narcissist. Well, there's no line in the sand. It's not a hard and fast thing. Like, okay, you've crossed this line. Now you're a narcissist. If it's at like, it's a spectrum. So it's not so cut and dry, unless of course the person's behavior is like outrageously extreme and they're in and out of jail. They have a history of domestic violence. They have they're manipulative. They're exploiting people. They have no empathy. They have no remorse. Then it tends to be more of like, okay, slam dunk, this person, personality disordered. But even then, a clinician most likely is going to be hesitant to make that There's a lot of different reasons a clinician might be hesitant to make a diagnosis. They might doubt their own diagnostic abilities, or clinical assessments, or they might not want to say that out loud because they know they're going to be kicking a bee's nest. Because if they tell you, yes, your ex or your current partner is in fact a narcissist, I really think that your partner is a narcissist or a sociopath. If the person who's going to then tell them, well, that my therapist said that you were a narcissist, that narcissist, because they have that mindset of competition, they're going to freak out. And there's a very solid chance that they're going to go launch a smear campaign against that therapist. They could, put a lawsuit against them, all kinds of stuff. So again, like getting that clarity from another person, that may or may not happen for a wide variety of reasons. This is why it's so important to look at the behavior. The labels are pointers. They're pointers to behaviors. The labels change over time. And the labels come and go. I mean, sociopath and psychopath used to be in the DSM. Now they're not. Now they're replaced with antisocial personality disorder. It doesn't mean that sociopaths and psychopaths don't exist. It just means that the way that those behaviors are now shuffled around and recategorized is what's changed. And frankly, a lot of that has nothing to do with research or anything other than billable criteria for insurance companies. So frankly, the DSM, it was never meant to be this hard and fast book it was never meant to be this Bible of mental health diagnoses that it is today. The front of the DSM-3 even specifically says that. It says this book is not intended to be used as like a diagnostic tool. And what is it used for today? A diagnostic tool. The intention was always to be just pointers to labels, but then insurance got tangled up in it. And of course, insurance companies, you need specific codes for everything. Like everything. Schizophrenia, bipolar, and then different tests and, personality disorders, what have you. Different tests and different things are covered under different billing codes. It's really not about accuracy with the DSM. It's about what's billable. So again, for that reason, that can lead to a lot of really gray area. So you can say if a person's not comfortable using that label, and I tend to shy away from labels because I see a lot of people that do get that, understandably so. They want that black and white. They want that diagnosis. They want that precision with it. And this is not a precise thing. And it keeps them stuck. So I think it's helpful to talk about people. I like the term emotional manipulator because it speaks more towards the behavior and less to the label. And it's less debatable. I mean, if a person's being manipulative, they're being manipulative. You know, that's the behavior. Whereas if you call a person a narcissist or a sociopath, that's a lot more debatable because it's a label. And then you go down that whole rabbit trail of, just all of it. So, and it's difficult. I mean, I shared this story before, but I think it's worth repeating. In my own family, there was, I'm not going to say who, because for the exact reasons that I was just talking about, but, they were seeing a therapist, and the therapist had said, you know what, your husband sounds like a narcissist. The more that you're telling me, he sounds like a narcissist. And that therapist was absolutely right. And so that person, then goes home and had asked the therapist, well, can they change? The therapist said, no, narcissists do not change. Person said, okay. They filed for divorce about a week later. Well, then word got round to that person that the therapist had said that they were a narcissist. The person got really upset. They freaked out. They went to 3 different professionals that were all PhD level psychologists and got 3 separate independent psychiatric evaluations that all said that no, in fact, he was not a narcissist. And so he went back to that person and said, see, these people know, they have even more education, even more experience in this, and they're saying that I'm not a narcissist. And thankfully, that person said, you know what? I don't care what they say. Like, I know what I'm seeing, and what I'm seeing is problematic. You're not willing to change it, and I'm done. And they listened to themselves, and they were able to walk away and never looked back. But that narcissist did go on to then make that one therapist's life a living hell and had threatened lawsuits. And I'm sure she probably lost a lot of sleep over it because he did have a lot of money. He had a lot of influence. And I'm sure that went on for quite a while. So that's kind of the downside of getting kind of stuck in all of this, the diagnostic criteria for all of it. It really just goes back to, if you're being negatively impacted by somebody's selfish behavior, it's a problem. And that alone is worth examining and figuring out what is deal breaker behavior for you, and examining that person's mindset. Is their mindset one of competition, or is it one of cooperation? And of course, time will tell what their mindset really is. So I would encourage people to kind of look at it their own way. But that's kind of my main thing with bringing in a third party, with a therapist or anybody else. It can be very validating, but it can be very re-victimizing as well, because a lot of therapists are not familiar with abuse, even though they might think that they are, but they're not. And, it's not healthy to turn over our power and control to anybody, even if they're anybody, to a therapist, to a teacher, to a priest, to me, to your mom, to anybody. Like, it's really important that you guys think for yourself and for you to examine what's going on critically and to trust your judgment, because there's no shortage of well-intended bad advice out there, and it can do a tremendous amount of damage to somebody. So let's see, let me scroll down. Okay. Yeah, Elise says, I'm afraid to date again too. Well, yeah, and that's understandable and it's okay, and you just go forward in your own time and at your own pace and I think just try to have that attitude of abundance and it really just goes down to like trusting your judgment and if you feel like something's off, it's probably off and that's okay. So you just kind of back up a little bit into where you're moving at a speed that you're comfortable with. Sylvie asks, is it worth re-victimization to be validated? I agree with the no shortage of well-intended bad advice. I would, I would love to see you guys get to the place where you don't need to be validated, where you trust your judgment enough to where everybody can be telling you that you're wrong and that you're okay with still moving forward in a way that you're comfortable with. Because other people aren't picking up on the same things that you're picking up on. So, for example, that was something that I ran into with Steve. So after Jack, I felt like my brain was mashed potatoes. I didn't know who to trust. I didn't trust my judgment. I didn't know which end was up. I was kind of barely functioning. I, really was having a hard time with things. And I, I had known Steve for a while. I'd known him in person. We didn't meet online or anything. My other friends knew him. And but right away, I began having those night terrors again, and I was really unsettled and was having a lot of anxiety, and, it was not good. And I I was looking for validation. So I was talking to my friends. I'm like, is it him or is it me? And I think I might be really messed up. And if I am really messed up, I don't want to be really messed up because this guy is so awesome. But I can't tell, if he's, if he's charming and he's a con artist or if he's charming and he's like just a really good guy. And I have all these issues. Like I couldn't tell what was really going on there. So I was looking for outside validation. Generally, here's the thing too. And so let me finish my story and then I'll tell you. So then I was looking to them and they were like, Dana, he is wonderful. Like you guys are two of my favorite people. You guys make this amazing couple and, don't let what happened with Jack sour you and it's okay to trust him. Like he's a really great guy. Well, no, he wasn't at all. He pretended to be. He really had a lot of people snowed, but he wasn't. I look back at that situation and the big lesson for me was you got to go with your gut instinct. You've got to go with trusting your judgment and things and to not seek outside validation. I heard a great quote the other day about advice, and I forget who said it, but it was something along the lines of advice, which is basically validation. Advice is what we ask when we know the truth but don't want to accept it. I love that. So that is generally the case. If you're wondering if it's them or if it's you, it's generally them. Like it's what you're seeing truly is problematic. And if we find ourselves continually asking for validation and advice, it's because we don't want to acknowledge that what we're experiencing is problematic. So, I would encourage you to do a lot of journal writing and it's a sign also if you're seeking validation to reconnect to yourself. That was a question Mark asked me as during our time together about dating again and how I felt with like trusting people. And I had said, you know what? I feel so amazing at this point in my life because I trust my judgment. I don't need validation. It totally does not matter to me what anybody else says about anything. About starting this YouTube channel, about the clothes I wear, about the people that I befriend, about the decisions that I make. I listen to input from other people to some extent, but I always make up my own mind, and I listen to my gut instinct. And I realize that other people are going to be picking up on different cues, kind of based on their own perceptions. And they haven't gone through the frickin' rock tumbler like we have. A lot of people don't even realize these people really walk the earth to this extent, or they think if they do, that they would be able to spot them. And a lot of them, I say probably the vast majority of them, are very, very wrong. So, a person can only give validation based on what they've experienced. And a lot of people have never experienced this kind of stuff. So, but let's see. Yeah, it's very, very empowering to truly be able to trust yourself. It's interesting. I was on a forum for a chat group for different YouTubers. This was a while back, and people were asking all of these different questions about what should they do, and it was that continually seeking validation of sorry, I gotta take a drink there. Continually seeking validation of, people wanting to build their channel and do this full time, and what kind of business model should they do, and kind of the behind the scenes of building a YouTube channel. And of course, there's tons of advice that's being thrown around with how I've gotten tons of advice with what people think I should do with my channel and how I should go about this. And a lot of these people really know, they really know what they're talking about. And it's funny because when I went against my better judgment and I did do a lot of the things that they had said to do, it was a total flop. It not work at all. And for example, here's just an example of some well-intended bad advice, because they're not me, and they aren't doing what I'm doing in this topic. They had said, film against a plain white background, because anything else is really going to be too distracting. Well, I did that, and the feedback that I got was, was awful. It was basically and I did, and it was awful. It was like I was being held hostage somewhere. It was just this plain white background, and the lighting was really severe, and there was nothing friendly or comfortable about it. And people were like, you know what? Doug was the one that said, he's like, I really like your Buddha board. Please bring that back. And I had taken it down because people had said, we don't like it. I had taken down my painting of my butterfly, and people were like, what are you doing? Bring that back. And people had said, oh, you really need to talk faster in your videos. Get to the point. People are on YouTube. They only want to be here for 5 minutes. You've really got to talk fast. And so I was turning myself inside and out, trying to talk faster and to make my videos shorter and do all these things. And so then the feedback I was getting from people was you're talking really fast and you're really freaking me out. Can you not do that? Can you just go back to being normal? How you used to be? So, yeah, it's okay, I guess, to ask for advice, but at the same time, you've got to go with your judgment and your gut instinct with things. And, other people, you know best. You really, really do know best. So go with that. So that was just kind of just another example of advice. So Let's see. Let me scroll up here. Amber says, I love your background. It's so welcoming. Thank you. Yes, it's my living room. If you were to actually come over to my house, you'd probably think it was really weird because I never take anything down. So I have like these lights and this table and a microphone and everything set up in my living room, and people just have to walk around it because I'm lazy, apparently. Let's see. Limitless says, Dana, be yourself. You're awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. You know what? Here's the funny thing about that is, especially like on YouTube or on, I think TV in general, frankly, is everybody's awesome. Like everybody really is. Everybody has something that's unique to them. And it's so weird, but like we're all kind of fascinated by each other's uniqueness. And I love hearing stories, true stories from people. And I love hearing about kind of their struggles and their challenges. And, here's another example. I was listening to a podcast the other day, one that I really enjoy called The Art of Charm. And they just cover a bunch of different topics. And the host of the show was saying, this show's been on for like 10 years. And he just happened to say that he has things go majorly wrong about every month. And hearing that was so validating to me because it was like, oh, I'm not the only one. Okay, good. This is not just me, because it in any arena of our life, when things go wrong, it's so easy to think that it's just us, that we're the only person that's having these issues, that it must just come so easily and naturally to other people. And it doesn't. I mean, everybody's got their learning curve. Everybody's got their challenges. The grass it looks greener, but it's not. Like everybody's got their stuff. And I guess, I think that's what's so interesting on all of the different YouTube channels where it's unscripted and people do really share honestly about their challenges and what's going on with them. Because I think that's how we bond to other people, is based off of, off of hearing that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Limitless says, Dana, you and Paul need to do a show together because you are so on the same wavelength. I am excited about checking out his podcast because I love podcasts, and I'll be curious to see what kind of stuff he has to say. Yes, I totally hear you, postmodern. She says, in the case of my ex, it really helped that my former therapist described him as sociopathic because I still have to deal with him today. Now my daughter is beginning to see his narcissistic traits. Yes. And that's, again, like that's the thing with labels, is they can be so, they can give a tremendous amount of clarity. I think we've all experienced that when we heard the word like narcissist or sociopath. I know for me, it was hearing those two words and looking them up and being like, that's it. Like I knew, like this is, people were saying, like, kind of treating me like, oh, it was a bad breakup. And I'm like, no, this is so far beyond a bad breakup. Like this is crazy stuff that only happens on like a Lifetime TV movie. This isn't normal run of the mill stuff. Like this is wild stuff. And hearing those terms and getting that validation was incredibly reassuring. But again, like if that can also work against a person if they don't get that validation for whatever reason. Beryl says, Dana, I sent you my story months ago and it hasn't been published. Are you still publishing them? I am. I had a huge website issue that has gone on now for about 5 weeks, and I'll have to go check my email. I was checking my email today. Long story. I was trying to switch website hosts because my site kept getting hacked, and I don't know still what all is going on. We had major issues with my support group on my website. I can't even begin to tell you how many dozens of hours I have been trying to get this resolved. So I will check the email. Did you send it to Dana at thriveafterabuse.com? And if so, I will spend some time tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Thursday and Friday, seeing how much of that I can retrieve. So, okay, your business creates websites and forums. We might need to talk, because that was another issue I was having. Is I'd hired 3 different people and everybody kept backing out. They'd make me like wait a week and then they'd back out, and then it was just like nothing was getting done. It was incredibly stressful. If you can email me again, Dana at thriveafterabuse.com. Let me know. Put in like the subject line Beryl Pink, so I can make sure that I know what to search for when I search my emails, and that way we can make sure we can connect. So, oh, good. You know people. You know people. Yes, that would be phenomenal, because I ended up getting a guy off of Fiverr, and that was. I still kind of worry about whether or not that was the best idea. Okay. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Okay, somebody had said, Dana, I have a question for you before you go. So ask away and I will scroll through and look for it. And for those of you that are, if you see a question come through, please try to get my attention, because the chat moves really fast and I stop it, and when I restart it, then it's really, it's difficult. So Kai Cools asks, why do narcissists come back around on birthdays? I think a lot of it is, I think there's probably a lot of different reasons for that, but I think, by and large, they tend to be driven to do things that make them feel smug and superior, and it makes them feel important. And popping up around birthdays or holidays or any type of like major life events, they oftentimes know that it really ruffles your feathers and it upsets you. And when that happens, they get kind of this sick satisfaction from that. So it's a way for them to continue having power and control over you, over your emotions, over your day. This is why I think if you can block them, if you can go no contact, if you can distance yourself to where they're not upsetting you with their behavior, that really is the ideal way to go, because it's ridiculous, the stuff that it's so immature, the stuff that they do. And of course, like, it's just, they don't care. It's just all about them. So they don't care that they upset you. And of course they'll play stupid, like, well, I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday. I'm sorry that upset you. And then of course they put it back on you. But it's like, no, I don't talk to you. We haven't talked because you're a jerk. I want you out of my life. And like, you somehow created a fake account on Facebook and messaged me on my birthday, knowing that I would not be okay with that. Like, that's manipulative, sadistic behavior, you know? So let's see. Okay, I'm scrolling up. Um, so okay, Allison asks about being angry. She says, I'm so over being angry. It's been years and I'm still so mad. I want it gone. That's kind of, I think, been the theme of the live stream. We talked about that a lot earlier. And I know the live stream's been cutting in and out. And, you know, but generally, it's kind of what I was saying earlier. I would encourage you to go back and maybe kind of cut to like an hour into the live stream. Oh, and by the way, you guys, I will. The plan for these live streams is the ball is in motion. I have Kristen, who was on here earlier tonight. She is going to be working towards cutting these up into a series of smaller videos. That's probably going to take quite a bit of time, but that ball is in motion. And then that way I will be able to, I'll keep the long live stream for those that like to listen to it when they drive or what have you. But then the smaller videos are going to be, you know, put up according to topic where people can more easily, you know, access them instead of sitting through, you know, 3 hours. So, but just kind of to reiterate, with anger, with getting over that, we talked about doing things like taking time for gratitude, taking time to try to get your brain to switch track. So to where you're just practicing putting down that anger. And I think even realizing that you can do that is probably quite a big aha moment for a lot of people. You know, I hadn't realized that. It took me a while to kind of realize that myself. So kind of practicing that, like, okay, I'm going to take a time out. I'm going to go watch a funny movie. And then and then letting myself know, because I felt like I couldn't. It was like this anxiety, like, no, I'm angry. I can't put the anger down because it's not resolved because I was victimized. So I have to stay angry because I was victimized. So I'm angry because I was victimized. And it's kind of just this loop that like my brain was running over and over and over and over again. And I didn't know how to get out of that cycle. And so doing things like practicing putting it down. You know, I use this example. So if you're into visualization, this might help. Like, okay, visualize, like, this is my anger, my righteous anger, like something really, you know, something that happened that's not okay. It's not okay. It's not fair. It's not right. Okay, but it happened, and now you're stuck. You're stuck with this ball of anger. To practice, okay, this is it. It's understandable that I feel this way. But for right now, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to go out with a friend for a drink, or I'm going to go to a movie, or I'm going to watch something on YouTube that's funny. And so for the next 10 minutes or 2 hours or what have you, I'm going to consciously set this down, set my anger down, and I'm going to go have a good time. And then after I'm done having a good time, if I want to pick it up again, I can pick it up again. And then that way, when you're out having a good time, when you're trying to get your brain to just relax and just release, just practicing releasing that anger, when you have these thoughts surface that you start finding yourself thinking about your relationship again and thinking about anger and how hurt and angry you are, you can tell yourself, yes, that's all very, very valid. But for right now, I'm just going to have some fun. I can think about that later. And then you can kind of practice redirecting your thinking. Because what happens is when we go through a trauma of any kind, especially this kind of a trauma, it's our it's more of like our amygdala. It's our reptilian brain that it's that fight or flight, and it just latches on to this trauma, and it has a hard time letting go. And so in order to kind of help our brain, to help that relax, that get just to calm down that adrenaline, that all of this intensity that's coursing through us, it helps to just periodically get ourselves out of that state of anger and fear and rage and that intensity, and just take a break. And then your brain's probably going to go back because it doesn't know what else to do right now. It just keep taking a break, and don't overthink it. Don't think, am I running away from my feelings? Am I not dealing with things? Am I, don't even go there. This is nothing more than you just taking a break for a little bit from all that. And then over time, once your brain starts realizing, that you're safe, that you're okay, it's going to start being more flexible. It's going to get that flexibility back, where it's going to let go of a lot of that fight or flight. And you're going to be able to kind of more integrate what happened into things, instead of being this rigid approach into that fight or flight. Your brain's going to it's going to release. So, and then we also talked about using this pain, this anger, especially because anger is a very powerful emotion. And, anger can destroy a person, or we can let it become like rocket fuel, and we can have that propel us to the next highest level. So we can use those emotions towards our highest and greatest good. You can go to the gym, you can get into amazing shape, you can organize your house, you can take this time in kind of making that declaration that the best revenge is a good life, and you can start just just burning off that energy in a positive direction. Really does help to kind of diffuse a lot of that anger, because now you're putting that anger to work for you, and you're giving your pain a purpose, and you're giving your pain a positive purpose, which really does help to move you forward in a positive direction. Try it. Like, that might sound, I don't know how that might sound to somebody. That might even sound insulting to somebody. Just humor me and try it for like the next 48 hours, and then let me know how you feel. So I was talking earlier too about kind of what I was doing. So if I was starting to feel that intense anger and rage, and I was wanting revenge, I just was so angry, and I would say, Dana, the best revenge is a good life. I would go organize something. I would go do something to benefit me, to bring that good life into fruition. Like now. You can start doing this now. So moving forward in that direction really, really does help. Suckle Goofy Fur says, do you care if your past narcs watch your videos? And do you ever feel stupid for voicing your experiences? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do I care if they watch my videos? No, I really don't. I didn't realize when I started making these videos, I didn't have any expectations for them, I guess. I for sure didn't expect things to grow to this level. Like, that was never my expectation or even my intention. I don't know what I expected really with making videos. I think if anything, it was more of I felt like this was kind of my message in the bottle. Like, I'll just start talking about this topic, and hopefully kind of this message is going to wash up on the shores of the people that need to hear it. There wasn't a lot of thinking like beyond that point. So, had I to do it differently, I would have done things differently. But, my guess is I will at some point hear from them. And at first I was incredibly panicked. I probably spent like the first 8 months when my channel started really growing, getting really panicked about that. And thinking about, oh no, I'm going to hear from them. And, what if they contact an attorney, and what, I don't want to even get an email from them. And I want them out of my life. But then but then it was sort of like, I can't unsay the stuff that I've said. Like, it is on the internet and it's out there for eternity. So, okay, like I can't go back and undo what I've done. So with that said, how am I going to handle this when this probably will happen? And, the reality is I try to stay calm about it. I'm like, you know what? They live 26 hours away. I don't feel like I'm in danger of any kind. If they were to try to sue me, again, this is my mindset. When I talk about saying to yourself, I'm going to use everything that comes across my path towards my highest and greatest good, then when you have that mindset, then nothing negative happens to you. It's a really empowering mindset. So if they were to contact me, then I would use it towards my highest and greatest good, and I would use it towards the highest and greatest good of everybody else. And I would probably video the whole thing, and I would use it as a learning experience and get as much mileage out of it as I possibly could. And, I don't lose sleep. Now that I have a plan, I guess, for what will probably happen, I don't lose sleep over it. And if anything, I almost kind of like warmly welcome it, because I think it could be that much more of a learning experience for people, and it could bring a lot of this stuff to light. So another thing that I used to tell myself a lot, and I still do from time to time, is another mantra was, I am not easily stressed, impressed, or intimidated. So I don't turn my power and control over to anybody. So I keep that in check. I am not stressed, impressed, or intimidated. I am not easily stressed, impressed, or intimidated. So, yeah. And as far as feeling stupid for voicing my experiences, yeah, I struggled with that for quite a while. I had a lot of doubt. A lot of self-doubt in a lot of different ways. I was embarrassed. I had a lot of embarrassment for a long time, especially when my videos, they were getting out. I didn't know what I was getting into. So I really thought that I could keep my videos and everything separate from my personal life. That somehow my friends and family and stuff wouldn't know that I was doing this. And, that didn't work. Like, very quickly, I realized, yeah, okay, people know very quickly, within like a few months, the word was out there. People knew I was doing these videos. I was getting emails from friends and family. It was very awkward, very uncomfortable. I went on a date once with a guy who had Googled me and came across everything. He'd watched a lot of my videos. We were out at dinner and he's telling me, he saw my videos. He's never experienced anything like what I was describing. And he was very nice about it. He's like, I really admire your strength in doing this. I just felt like the blood just like rush from my face. And it was just this awful feeling of, oh my God, you know so much about me. And I felt incredibly vulnerable and like, I got to get out of here. It was awful. So yeah, there's been a lot of unintended consequences to what I've done and unintended and unexpected emotions as well. I mean, I've had issues with, internet stalking. I've had issues with safety stuff. I've had issues with friends and family. I've had no shortage of technology issues. I've had, it just goes on and on and on. Self-esteem stuff. I mean, this stuff is brought up. It is so, man, talk about like a crash course into like dealing with your issues. Putting yourself on YouTube and being real about your life is a crash course in dealing with like any unresolved issues or unseen issues that you have, because the general public, the vast majority of them are great. There's a big percentage of them that give a ton of constructive criticism. And then there's a percentage of them that just give flat out hurtful criticism. And then there's just the trolls. It's now I'm to the point again where I've tried to embrace that mindset of like using this for my highest and greatest good and using it for the highest and greatest good of others. I don't let the critical comments rattle me as much as they used to, but that was incredibly hard. I mean, I've been doing this for like what, 18 months now, and the first, and I've probably gained like a good 20 something pounds in 18 months. And it's interesting. Like, I didn't realize that I was an emotional eater. But apparently I am. I really thought it was because I was being a lot more sedentary because I was writing a lot more and I was doing videos. Being very sedentary. And then I realized, no, I'm eating a lot of food that I don't even really like. I struggled with a lot of like burnout and kind of how to handle all of this and how to get organized. Oh my God, like how to get organized. Because pretty much right away with my channel, I mean, seriously, within like the first 45 days, it was just this like massive influx of everything of stuff. I just was so, I had no idea what to expect or what to prepare for. So I was getting hundreds. I still get hundreds of emails and messages and comments, and I can't, it's just me, and I work full time, and I can't keep up with all of it. And then there was a lot of guilt that came with that, and that still comes with that. And it's just been a lot. It's been a lot. But with all that said, realizing this is what I want to do with my life. I absolutely feel like this is my purpose. So I'm not going to stop. And knowing that, it's sort of like, well, then I need to level up. Like, I need to get this stuff under control. I don't want to, keep gaining weight, and I don't want to keep feeling stressed out, or when I do have burnout, I don't want to experience these things. So I try to interpret them as, or embarrassment, or any of this. To me, it's a sign, again, like any other uncomfortable emotion. Things are out of alignment. That's what that means. And so now I need to figure out, how do I get things back into alignment? Like, what would that look like? Because it's funny, somebody had asked me the other day, they were like, well, how many hours do you work? And I had answered, I said, well, I work 40 hours a week, meaning my 8 to 5 job. And they're like, no, like on your website and your everything, like your Thrive After Abuse stuff, like how many hours do you spend on it? And I couldn't even answer the question because I was like, because I don't consider it work. It's woven into like who I am. So I don't even know. I don't even clock my hours. It's what I do. I mean, it's what I do in the morning and throughout the day and at night. And it's what I talk about on weekends, and it's what I work on weekends, and it's what I'm learning about. And it's everything. It's fun, and it's a challenge, and it's work, and it's stress, and it's just kind of so much a part of who I am. I just need to learn how to get more balance with that. So for those of you out there, and I know that there's a few people out there that have started YouTube channels on this topic, this is a hard way to go on many different levels. I mean, it's hard enough, I think, starting a YouTube channel, especially if a person has goals, and they're I didn't have goals with this. I wasn't thinking about subscribers or views or making money at all. So I didn't have any expectations. But if a person, I think, has expectations and they have goals for their channel, that's hard enough. The whole learning curve with that, but it's even more, it's hard. It's hard when you're putting yourself out there and you're getting criticism from people, especially when you're talking about your own life. And that's what I worry about when people say, I'm doing a channel starting a YouTube channel about this because, again, I'm several years out and I really felt like I was healed enough to do this. And within like when my channel really began growing and I really began getting a lot of comments, and especially like critical comments, there was a long time there where I really struggled with that, thinking like, I was not expecting that. And I don't know if I'm strong enough to do this. And that was like the worst feeling in the world because this is what I want. I've always known this is what I've wanted to do, even back before Jack and Steve, before I found out about the double lives. Like when I was working at the domestic violence shelter, this is when my passion for all this got ignited. So, realizing it was really hard to realize, okay, I'm living my dream, but now I don't feel like I'm emotionally prepared enough to do it. And I was feeling like I was going through a rock tumbler all the time, like responding to comments and getting, hateful comments, and people, they just tell you all kinds of things like, oh, I think you're the narcissist, or I think that, you should just lose weight, or, you've got issues with men, or, people they just say stuff, and it's hard. It's hard putting yourself out there. So it's hard on many different levels across the board. And, but I'm not going anywhere. I just digging my heels in, and it's time for me to level up and get balance in my life. So I hope that kind of answered your question with all that. That was a really long answer. So sorry about that. Yeah, Randy says, you need a thick skin to do a channel. Yes. Yeah, you really do. And the thing is, if you dig your feet in, then you'll grow a thick skin. It's sort of like the whole saying, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better, or like wish you were stronger. And that's kind of been my mantra lately, is like, it's not going to get any easier. I mean, I see like, geez, like seriously, it's just one thing after another with technology with me. It is so flipping frustrating. And, and it's like, okay, this is the learning curve. Like this is there's a learning curve to everything. And, I'm just going to have to write it, and I'm going to have to do the best I can with it. And thankfully, everybody is incredibly understanding and incredibly supportive, and we can all laugh at it, because what else can we do? I don't know. Like tonight, I'm in this little tiny box, this little tiny picture of me. Why? I have no idea. Like, it's weird. Does this even happen to other people? I don't think that it does. But, so it's like, okay, we're just going to have to make the most of it, because there is no other option. But yeah, it's stressful. And what's so funny too is a lot of the people, I try to view it now, the people that, especially that give criticism, constructive criticism, I actually really warmly welcome. Totally all about that. I love, love, love getting honest feedback from you guys. If somebody says, hey, you know what? The live streams aren't working for me. They're way too long, or they're disorganized, or they're stressing me out. I'm totally okay with honest feedback. And then I can see, what can I do? Like what can we tweak? And what can we make this better? Because my whole goal is, this is like my kind of outreach program. So like, I want this to be effective for other people. Like the whole goal is, like, to educate and empower other people. And I'm open. I'm always open to feedback. The people that give critical feedback, if I feel that it's like they've really thought about it and they're not just trolls that are like, you're stupid, you're fat, like that's not helpful. Like, okay, like, it's, there's no value in that feedback. That's just somebody just being ugly. But if a person really has critical feedback, that's hard to hear because sometimes that can also be some of the best feedback because they're just being so brutally honest. And there's been a few of those people that I've messaged back and forth with, especially there's been a handful of men from like kind of the MGTOW movement, which is an interesting movement. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it stands for men going their own way. And when I first came across it, I really didn't know what to make of it. I thought it was incredibly misogynistic and that I didn't see any value in it whatsoever. I was really turned off to it. And then I began watching, some more. I was curious about it. And because a lot of the men that I was hearing from, I thought were incredibly intelligent and they were articulate and they had some valid points. And so I began watching more of their stuff and then talking to a few of them. And so kind of long story short, I'm actually pretty good friends with a couple of those commenters now. And it's really opened my eyes to a lot of different things. So I like that. I like trying to kind of bridge that middle ground and see if there's validity in criticism. I don't discount anything that I feel was like feedback that was given honestly to me, even if it hurts my feelings. If it was given honestly, then I do listen to it, even though it's hard. But I do. I try to listen to it. So. Okay. Cecilia's taken off for tonight. Okay, good night, Cecilia. And oh my gosh, what are people talking about in here? So, like all kinds of big crazy. There's a conversation about a bidet. I don't even know what is going on. So. Yeah, Trisha says, no good deed goes unpunished. Boy, isn't that true? Yeah. And that, I guess that's kind of my direction that I want to head is, I know myself and I know that my heart is in the right place. And I'm going to make mistakes. And unfortunately, I probably am going to say things that are going to make people feel re-victimized at times, or that are not going to give them, the clarity or the validation that they're seeking. And that's hard. That's hard to know that because it's just at this point, there's so many people out there. And I've experienced this with my support group on Facebook because that group has grown so much, that we're, not everybody's going to see things the same way. And that there's going to be issues. There's just going to, and it's hard. It's hard when, to know that there's just unintended consequences to every single thing that we do. And, yeah. To just kind of know like, okay, I'm working from a good place, and for me to pay attention to know that there's always unintended consequences to every single action. And so for me to try to stay as involved as I am with the community, and to pay attention to what what are these unintended consequences? Am I still getting the results that I want to get, or do I need to adjust my approach? Am I still, are my words, am I saying something that I think is empowering, but it's coming across as re-victimizing? If so, I need to adjust my approach and figure out, how do I go about like reaching those people? Because trauma is a really tricky thing. It's a really tricky puzzle to kind of figure out, and different words are going to resonate differently with different people. So, but again, that's kind of the upside to hearing from, tens of thousands of people. When you put your message out there on YouTube or on the internet and people give you that feedback, you can, if you're open to it, like, you can instantly be like, okay, I need to work on this and this and this. And I think saying this in a certain way is confusing people. So I need to kind of change this and make this more clear. And, I think a lot of that for me, it's, I used to teach seventh grade. and I used to teach seventh grade at-risk kids before I was a nurse. And so that was always my mindset. I had the mindset that there's no such thing as a bad student. There's just an ineffective teacher. And so it was always kind of this challenge of, how do I get through? How do I get through? How do I change the message? Kind of, where is the block there? So that's the hard part with all of this, but it's also kind of what makes it a challenge, and what makes it challenge in a stressful way, but also challenge in an interesting and kind of fun way to just figure out, how can I get through to people. So, but yes, doing this is all very interesting. Tuck asks, do all narcissists have big muscles and washboard abs? No. So, people, narcissists, emotional manipulators of any kind, they can be anybody. They can be male or female. They can be young or old. They can be any nationality, any religious, orientation, any sexual orientation. They can be big or they can be little. They could be your next door neighbor. They could be a parent. They could be a sibling. They could be a child. They could be a significant other. They could be a coworker. They could be somebody at your church. So they are people, is what I'm saying. And so they come in a wide, any walk of life, just like people do, because they are people. So it's important that we don't look at specifics like that, that we look at the behavior, because it's the behavior that's what's important. It's that blinding degree of selfishness. It's the lack of empathy. It's the lack of remorse. It's the entitlement. It's the, any type of abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse, spiritual abuse, that kind of stuff. It's highly problematic behavior. And that's the problem, is the behavior. It's not, you don't want to start avoiding guys that have, that are super muscular necessarily, because that's not going to solve the problem. So, okay, let's see. Yeah, they all tend to have a grandiose sense of self. Although some of them come across, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. It's really interesting. So they all tend to think that they're the cat's meow, but some of them come across as incredibly insecure, and they'll say things like, oh, I'm so fat, or I'm so ugly, or look at my cellulite, or they come across as really insecure. And so it's very strange, where you can see these kind of two very different sides to themselves, where on one hand, you have this person with this seemingly like overinflated ego, but then on the other hand, there's a side of them that might come across as like a little kid, like a really insecure little kid who just can't face the world, and that they're incredibly fragile. And, healthy people don't have those two very different sides to themselves. We might be feeling really good at times, and we might feel really vulnerable at times, but there's not such that division of like these two selves. And with I really with a narcissist or an emotional manipulator, the problem there is that there is no like real true sense of self. That's the problem. And so it's just all of these different selves, that it's all of these masks that they wear to the outside world because they don't have a true sense of self. They're just trying to continually morph into being whatever they think that they need to be, is what it is. Yeah, I would agree. David says, it seems to me that like their insecurity is kind of a setup. I got that vibe too from a couple of them that I've known. And I think they're all different. And I think some of them do have that false insecurity where they're saying things like, oh, I'm just stupid, or they're kind of like fishing for compliments. They're either doing it that way, or they're pointing out flaws and these things like that to get you to lower your guard, to where all of a sudden you're reassuring them, and then all of a sudden things kind of spin back around, and now you're seeking your reassurance from them. Yeah, it's very strange. Yes, that's a great way to put it. Sylvie says, yes, I felt like I was raising 7 children and one of them was really big. Yeah. And that's a problem. I think a lot of partners of emotional manipulators would say that. They're like, I feel like my significant other is a child. I feel like I have one extra child because this my spouse is continually very emotionally immature. They continue to make really terrible decisions. They're continually getting in trouble. I continually have to bail them out, and it's a very one-sided dynamic. And that's a good sign of like of a codependent relationship where there is that one-sided dynamic where we're feeling like a parent or a teacher or a nurse or a therapist to somebody instead of that we're equals. So that's a sign that something's off balance there. If you're feeling like this is a one-sided dynamic here, and I'm an adult, but yet I'm married to a child, this is a problem. Daniel asks, can you ever recover from too narcissist psychological abuse that has started from early childhood? Yes. I fully believe that if you're motivated to work towards recovery, that it is absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. Knowing kind of what you experienced, knowing that it's psychological abuse, knowing that this has gone on from early childhood, there's a ton of clarity in your question. So I think right there, kind of having the clarity of this is what was problematic, this is what was going on, this is what I've experienced. That's a big step towards healing. So awareness of what is and what is the problem is a huge step. There is a fantastic book I highly recommend you read. If you're not interested in reading it for whatever reason, you can at a minimum read my book notes on it. If you go to my website, which is thriveafterabuse.com, go to the book club tab. The book is called Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. Fantastic book. I can't recommend that book highly enough. That I think will give you a lot of clarity about really kind of what was going on. So all of the books for the book club, I take really thorough notes on them. And you can find all of my notes and all the different books. And I think we've been doing the book club. I think we're about maybe 8 or 9 books in. So, we're getting there. But there's quite a few books. There's quite a few, notes that you can go through. And I think reading all of those notes and getting caught up to speed with some of these really fantastic books can help kind of get you a jump start in identifying what went on and kind of how to move forward and heal from all of that. That book, Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving, he also talks about different strategies with moving forward in all of this. So really, really helpful stuff. Hayden says, 23-year relationship. How does one break it off without the guilt? Well, here's what I have to say about that. So guilt, there's 2 types of guilt. There's appropriate guilt and then there's inappropriate guilt. So appropriate guilt is guilt that we experience when we've actually done something worthy of feeling guilty about. So when we've done something wrong, we know we've done something wrong. We've tried to cover it up. We've tried to hide it. We did it intentionally. We borrowed, you borrow your sister's dress without asking, and then you end up shrinking it in the dryer and you hide it, right? Like you stuff it back in the closet and pretend like it never happened. That's worth feeling guilty about. You cheat on your spouse, you feel guilty. That's appropriate guilt. You should feel guilty about that. You feel guilty for, I don't know, taking money that wasn't yours or acting in a way that you know that you shouldn't have acted. That's appropriate guilt. Inappropriate guilt is guilt that a lot of us that are more on the codependent side of the spectrum experience all the time. We just experience that all the time. We experience guilt for things that is not ours to feel guilty over. Oftentimes other people's bad behavior. So appropriate guilt is when we feel guilty and bad about behavior that is ours. I did something bad. I feel guilty about it. Inappropriate guilt would be feeling guilty. Somebody else does something bad and then we feel bad for them. We experience the guilt that they should have. So something's off there. If you've done nothing wrong, if all you're doing is acting in a way that is self-preservation, that's keeping yourself safe and sane, that's drawing healthy boundaries, there's nothing there to feel guilty, to feel appropriate guilt over. So I think trying to separate that in your mind can help. Because, of course, if you've been with an emotional manipulator, if they've been manipulative, odds are they've probably been blaming you for everything the whole time. Or if they've been kind of exploiting or exploiting pity or different things, saying like, I need you. Like they've been trying to make you responsible to heal them. I need you to help get me sober. I need you. Well, see, you communicate so much better than I do. And, I had a really bad childhood. And so I need you to help me get better. And how can you leave me now? I'm at my worst, my lowest now. So that they do these things to get people to stay. It's manipulative. If you've set boundaries, if your boundaries continue to be pushed, if your boundaries continue to be broken, if you find yourself, if it's eroding your safety, your sanity, if it's like, if there's no end in sight to their bad behavior, if you just had enough, it's okay to say, you know what, I've had enough. Like this behavior, this is a pattern of really destructive behavior. This is like, I can't stay, because that's the thing. When you're with a relationship, the price of being in a relationship with a narcissist of any kind is it's a loss of your sense of self, because they have that mindset of like, there can be only one. It's this win-lose mindset. And so that's the price. You pay with your sanity and you pay with your safety. And you have to sacrifice who you are and your morals and your values and your standards and your boundaries and your hopes and your dreams. You have to sacrifice all of that in order to make the relationship work. Because if you did try to assert boundaries and standards and morals and values and hopes and dreams, they would just continue to get steamrolled by this narcissist who's operating from this blinding degree of selfishness where it's all about them all the time. And in order for them to be all about them, then there can be no you, because then it can't be all about them. So I guess try to get clear. Is it appropriate guilt you're experiencing, or is it inappropriate guilt you're experiencing? For those of you who are curious about codependency, and that's another one of those words that's incredibly emotionally charged. People get very defensive about it. They feel very re-victimized about it. So I would encourage you to, use the label if it helps, but put the label aside if it doesn't, and think about it in terms of boundaries. I think the vast majority of people out there would be wise to kind of study boundaries, because what we might even think that we have really good boundaries, and we don't, because this stuff is not taught and it's not practiced. And if anything, it's society tends to encourage really poor boundaries and poor decision making. So I would encourage you guys to look up codependency. You can look it up on YouTube, and look up boundaries. There's free groups in most areas. They're called CODA. It's Codependence Anonymous, kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's for codependents. And again, you don't have to agree that you think that you're codependent, but it can be a great place to explore boundaries and to talk to other people, and to listen, maybe even to listen to other people and listen to their stories, and see, if you can relate and how that might apply in your life. So that can be a great thing to do if you're wanting more kind of supplemental action type steps to do, in addition to therapy, or even in substitution of therapy. If you're not kind of getting anywhere with finding a good therapist, or if you can't afford therapy, CODA groups is another great option that's out there. So let's see. Let me make a note. So, okay, well, with all of that said, I think it's time we call it a night. And thank you guys so much for being here and for sticking with all of the technology issues. And hopefully I will have them resolved by next week. And, and if not, we'll just roll with it and we'll make it work for us somehow, some way. So again, really, thank you guys for everything. So as always, lots of love to you guys. You are not alone in this. You are not crazy, and you really can heal. You really can heal and move forward and have an amazing life. So take care, and I will see you again next Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay? Take care. Good night.